Hello there EFD squad and welcome back to Euro Roundup where you pick our winners and losers from the weekend just past. Joining me back in the hot chair is Patrick Van Straten from his travels in New York. Give me your favourite moment from New York. I saw a lot of food on your Instagram story and it was making me drool. Anything in particular?
Yeah, Dixon's Farm Stand Meats in Chelsea Market. Best pastrami sandwich in New York. I'd say even better than Katz's Deli. Bang.
Yeah, and if you'd like to sponsor Armchair Fans, we are back for the Tottenham Barcelona game.
Would appreciate that. That'd be great.
Free sandwiches for all. Anyway, talking of fillings, Juventus really filled in Fiorentina, didn't they, Pato? And this comes from at Turretiana Mo. So, poor segue, butcher the pronunciation, but let's crack on with the game.
Yeah, well, to go away from home against Fiorentina and win 3-0 this season is actually a greater achievement than it might seem. You know, we think of Juventus as being really dominant in Serie A, but Fiorentina are a really good side, and this win moves Juventus 11 points clear at the top of Serie A already. The goals from Bentancur, Chiellini, and a 79th minute penalty from Ronaldo after a handball. That first goal from Bentancur in particular I thought was really, really nice. Swapped some passes with Dybala on the edge of the box. Then Ronaldo makes a great diagonal run which drags two defenders away, and Bentancur runs into the space, slots it in the bottom right-hand corner with his left foot. Chiellini, his goal, the first in 18 months for him, slightly more fortunate. He kind of had this acrobatic effort on goal and it looked like Lafont had saved it, but it spooned up in the air, ended up going in anyway. A little bit disappointing for him. And Ronaldo's penalty is his 10th of the season, making him the joint top scorer in Italy with Piontek. The last person to score that many goals in his first 14 games in Serie A, John Charles in 1957.
The gentle giant.
The Welsh wizard. Anyway, Ronaldo's season so far looks like this. 5 assists as well, 1.8 key passes and 7.1 shots per game. That's the most he's averaged since 2012-13 when he contributed 40 league goals. I think it's fair to say that he's been a decent signing for them, but a little bit disappointing for Fiorentina.
Yeah, and they've been a little bit disappointing all season, Pato. Finished 8th for the last 2 years consecutively, but they've only won 4 of their league games so far with no victories since the 30th of September, which was actually a very impressive victory over Atalanta, who we know are a great side under Gasperini. And they currently sit 12th, so need to put some form back together if they want to match seasons just past.
But the numbers under the hood look a bit better than that, don't they?
Yeah, so their underlying numbers, XG-wise, would suggest they've been a little bit unfortunate. They should have scored 2.8 more goals, which actually would have equated to 6 more points, pretty significant at this stage of the season. That had put them 3rd behind Juve and Napoli.
Oh, God, 9 places.
So not getting the rub of the green, and that's how tight it is.
That's
actually
rough.
Just below 3rd place. Obviously a lot of top teams clamouring for that last Champions League place. Milan actually winning this weekend, beating Parma. So putting the gauntlet down. But Fiorentina continue to be a little bit unlucky. One slightly concerning factor that maybe is a bit more damning numbers-wise is the form of 23-year-old striker Giovanni Simeone, who scored 14 league goals in his debut campaign for La Viola in 17-18. So far, he's only netted 2 in 14. And more worryingly, Pato, his numbers have gone from 2.8 shots, which
decent,
is okay. It's pretty good, isn't it? Mauro Icardi's averaging around 3. You don't see massive shot numbers, I guess, in Serie A, barring Cristiano Ronaldo. It's gone down to 1.9. Which is
troubling.
Which is bad.
Are these shots going elsewhere, do you think? Are they going to Chiesa? Because I know Chiesa's shooting more. So maybe people are keying onto Simeone and it gives Chiesa a bit more space or something, but it's a bit worrying if not.
I really like Chiesa. Chiesa's been linked with Juventus, but I think he's far from the finished article. Every time I've watched Fiorentina this season, he does rash things in the final third.
He's very young though.
Yeah, very raw, isn't he? But maybe that is well worth looking into, mate. Only had 1 shot against Juve though. I mean, we expect shots against Juventus to be limited. They concede, I think, the fewest in the league. So maybe less worrying in that isolated 90 minutes. But Simeone, come on, step it up, son. Star performers in this game. Bentancur is looking like an absolute bloody Rolls Royce this campaign, Pato. 5 tackles and interceptions, 2 aerial duels won. He's what, 6 foot? I want to say 6'3". He's a big.
I don't think he's that big.
6'1".
Max.
He's a big chap. Anyway, he's putting a bit of muscle as well in the last 6 months. 93% pass ac, 1 shot, 1 goal. And like Pato said, it was a lovely finish. Steered finish with his left foot. Juan Cuadrado as well, busy as ever, effervescent, you might say. 6 tackles and interceptions, 3 aerial duels, 2 dribbles, 2 shots, 1 assist.
Nice.
And he continues to just rack up really good numbers wherever he plays. And he can play in a number of positions, can't he? Now, if Juve are going to slip up and we are going to see some sort of title race in Serie A, because it is very close to becoming Liga in terms of competitiveness, then it's going to be in the next few weeks. So they play Inter Milan, who are 3rd, Torino, who are 6th at current, and Roma, who are massively underperforming and are 9th in their next few games. So a tougher test up ahead, but for now, Juventus, well worthy of being our first winners.
At Captain Guna has our first losers of the week, and they are PSG.
Yeah, we've been looking for an excuse to put them in our losers for a while, haven't
delighted.
we? And I mean, they only drew. There were probably, other top teams who didn't fare as well, but we're sticking them in there anyway. The streak is over for PSG, dropping their first points of the season in a 2-2 draw away with 11th placed Bordeaux. Now, it started as it usually does, with Neymar opening the scoring for Les Parisiens. I was let myself down there. After 1-2s with Mbappe and then Dani Alves, giving the latter his first assist of the season on his first start of the campaign. Of course, he has been suffering with injuries of late, and we saw him come on in the Champions League against Liverpool, so back to full fitness, it would appear. Although he is 35 now, isn't he, Dani Alves? So
yeah, he's getting on.
Probably his last campaign, maybe. PSG at least. Anyway, Bordeaux levelled through Briand just after half-time. That makes him the top-scoring Frenchman still playing in Ligue 1 with 88 goals to his name. So a personal accolade for him. Well done you, sir. But surely this won't persist with the likes of Mbappe already chasing him down. He restored PSG's lead, assisted by a defence-splitting ball by Julian Draxler. It's lovely, it's got to be said. Go and watch that if you haven't already. Bordeaux did grab a deserved equaliser. Left it late on 84 minutes with Cardiff reject Andreas Cornelius. Remember when he arrived for 8 million on 45k a week under Malky Mackay, and Vincent Tan was like, this is the reason you're getting the boot. He actually fared really well at Copenhagen after and had two good seasons in Italy.
Yeah, he's at Atalanta.
Atalanta. And there was, I think straight after that, he fared somewhere, fared well somewhere more obscure. Anyway, I'm going to move on from Cornelius. Yeah, he tamely headed past Areola. The goalkeeper definitely could have done better in that instance. On the face of it, Bordeaux performed really well with 18 shots to PSG's 9, but just 7 were in the area, and this is where shots can be a little bit misleading. So the quality of chance, not that great for Bordeaux, only hit the target 4 times. As you'd expect, PSG dominated the ball with 64% possession, but found the net with only 2 of their attempts on target. That's rare for PSG to be so wasteful, isn't it? Di Maria did hit the woodwork twice, though, I guess, and their XG was 1.5 to Bordeaux's 0.9, so 2-1 maybe being the fairest result, but we're all delighted that Bordeaux got something from it, Pato.
Yeah, and Bordeaux were able to kind of impose their will a little bit in this game. Thiago Silva made 11 clearances in this match, which shows where the territory was, and that's actually double his season high so far.
Interesting.
So you do see the way that Bordeaux were not just kind of put on the back foot by PSG the entire time, as they're able to do to most teams
Press them
in
in
the
good
league.
areas, yeah.
Well, yeah, so far this season, 14 league wins to start the campaign, which is a top 5 league record. First drop points, as you said. So really, people have struggled so far to make them uncomfortable at all, and at least it felt like they were a bit in this match. Though Marquinhos seems like he's comfortable absolutely everywhere. He's obviously been playing in defensive midfield, did it against Liverpool again in that 2-1 win in midweek. Made 4 tackles, 3 clearances, and won 5 aerial duels there. Very, very impressive stuff. Now, their lead at the top of the table, perilous. Only 14 points.
Oh, goodness.
Ahead of Montpellier, who they face next weekend. There's a full round of midweek fixtures first. They've got Strasbourg, but you'd imagine that's a simple win. And then Montpellier, so that gives them an opportunity to really pretty much wrap up the season by Christmas. It's been outrageous. The one downside in all of this, Neymar came off with what looked like a groin injury, and apparently it's unrelated to the one he suffered while on the international duty with Brazil. But if this proves to be a persistent issue, then it's going to be troubling for them because, of course, the Champions League this season has got to be their real goal.
I'm surprised he played in this game because he said against Liverpool that he was carrying a knock. So I thought he'd be rested afterwards, and he only played in the Champions League because it was such an important time.
And he was so active in that game as well.
You're thinking away to Bordeaux, Thomas Tuchel might give him a rest, but it shows you that Tuchel was still taking the league very seriously despite their points advantage. I want to ask you what you thought of Marquinhos and Thiago Silva's chest bump.
I didn't see
the Champions League.
Was
The Spartan chest bump.
I quite like that.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm fine with it. I watched the David Attenborough Dynasties thing.
Which one?
Penguins do that a lot.
Penguins are the best animals.
They just like rub their tummies together a lot. It seems nice.
Really upsetting though when, you see a seal lying there and you think one of them's getting eaten.
Ah, whatever.
And they have to like jump over the seal's mouth. You think they're not all going to make it.
Nature.
Yeah.
Mad team.
We've done Ligue 1, we've done the Serie A, and thanks to @Delana Pre, we're now going to the Bully, and Leipzig making a fist of it at the top, aren't they, Pat?
Yeah, they're in third, and they clawed back 3 points on second place Mönchengladbach after beating them 2-0 at the Red Bull Arena. They're now 8 points behind leaders Borussia Dortmund, but they have the joint best goal difference in the Bundesliga. And given that Ralf Rangnick is just basically keeping things ticking over until Nagelsmann turns up, he's doing a sensational job.
What a safe pair of hands.
He's so good at managing. It's actually really annoying that he just sits most of the time like recruiting young players, which he's also great at, so whatever. Anyway, this is actually the first time that Leipzig have kept 5 consecutive clean sheets at home, so really getting the defence running again after a pretty poor defensive campaign last season under Hasenhüttl. They'd lost 2 on the bounce though coming into the game, but they did recover well. They outshot their opponents 14-7 and had 6 on target to Gladbach's 4. Now I thought Gladbach were possibly a little bit unlucky not to get on the score sheet, but I do think that you would have expected Leipzig to win this game looking at the chances.
Missed a couple of sitters as well, didn't they? Yeah.
6 shots on target per game this season. That's their average. And that's only beaten by Hoffenheim in the Bundesliga. That's very impressive.
That one shows us that Dortmund have been a little bit unfortunate, and 2, that Nagelsmann is doing an unreal job at Hoffenheim.
Yeah, I mean, Hoffenheim's attack, with the quality of talent they have, is phenomenal. And with Leipzig, though, I mean, they have stars like Timo Werner. Timo Werner took 4 shots all inside the area, and so far this season he's been averaging 4 shots inside the area per 90 minutes. He scored in both halves, and his season tally is now at 8 goals, 1 assist in 12 starts.
Nice.
Bearing in mind, is he even 23 yet? He might be.
Not sure, around
he might
that
only
age,
be
for sure.
22. But he's got a goal contribution every 115 minutes, which is 15 minutes behind Lewandowski. So, to be honest, it looks like the future of the top scorer charts in Germany are pretty much nailed on.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many times we can say he is the ideal long-term heir to Lewandowski at a place like Bayern.
He's a beast.
He feels like such a Bayern player. It feels like a move they're going to make pretty imminently.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Pato visits that scenario in the podcast, I think the one before last.
Possibly.
So go and download that if you're interested in how Bayern Munich can possibly rebuild and dominate German football. Again, we give our take on events. But back to Timo Werner, because he's the scourge of Gladbach. The scourge of Gladbach. What good Twitter bio that is. Timo, change it. Anyway, he scored 4 in his last 5 against the Fouls. The second was largely down to good work from Poulsen, who sort of pulled away, showed good strength to run through, and then Werner was just in a better position to run onto the ball and score into a pretty empty net. Poulsen, the 24-year-old Dane, now has 7 goal involvements in 11 starts, so is proving an able foil for Timo Werner at current. Defensively, Leipzig managed to limit the threat of Alexandre Player, who has been exceptional this term. 11 goal contributions before this game, averaging around 4 shots per game. So actually the same as Timo Werner from a wide left position. That's how threatening he's been this campaign. But the wideman didn't take a single shot in this game. He was absolutely shut down by Sabitzer down that left-hand side, who completed 3 tackles on the night. And I've got to say, across 2 legs against Celtic, with Kevin Campbell in and out of the side because he was being rested, he was probably their best player. Very talented guy, only 24, like I said.
Given that he's been an attacking midfielder or a winger his pretty much whole career, like he's turned into an excellent kind of all-round pressing player.
Yeah,
he's really good defensively too.
Good controller, and I do rate that he's grown out his hair. Do you like the ringlets?
I'm not wild about them, but they're fine. You know, if he wants to do that, I don't really mind.
I love it because he used to look a little bit, I don't know, a little bit rough.
I like that.
Rough and ready before.
Yeah, I like that. Jason Statham.
Now he's a bit more, cultured. Timothy Chalamet, you might say. The comparison you made off camera. Anyway, is Gladbach's luck starting to level out because they're currently running hot on expected goals, overperforming by around a +5. So they've scored 30. Expected goals dictates that the quality of chances they've created means that they should probably only have scored around 25.
Still not bad.
We saw it with Fiorentina though, what an impact 5 or 6 goals can make at this point in the campaign. So they could suffer if it starts to plateau their luck, that is. That's the 3rd most fortuitous in the league behind Dortmund and Frankfurt. Now, danger man Thorgan Hazard still huffed and puffed, took 7 shots, putting 3 on target at the away side's total of 4. Also completed 3 tackles and laid on 2 chances as well.
Outrageous.
So really, really productive numbers. So we talk about luck. He was maybe a little bit unfortunate in this game. Gladbach take on Stuttgart at home next, while Leipzig visit Freiburg. So 2 easier ties for both teams. We expect them to get 3 points in those games, and the fight for 4th goes on. The Bundesliga, really interesting. We just need Dortmund to slip up now. Paco Alcácer, 10 goals, 280 minutes.
Mental.
What's going on? Stop it.
Second and final losers of the week are Monaco. They seem like permanent features. I'm bored of covering them, but I think that they're probably going to reappear once Thierry Henry gets the sack. This comes from @Mihailo47. Very unimpressive stuff.
Yeah, I agree. We should have an embargo on Monaco after this. What a terrible, terrible game after their win against Cayenne, which I believe also made your round.
What a great match that must have been.
This has just been, the terrible start Monaco have made. It's just been compounded by the fact that Leonardo Jardim has ended up in Saudi Arabia. I mean,
no one should go to Saudi Arabia for any reason under any circumstances.
Unless you're an arms dealer.
Well, yeah, but at least in Jardim's case, he's had such a rough time in Monaco the last 3 seasons. He's now going to get a paycheck for doing basically nothing.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing, actually, in about 5 years' time, a crop of Saudi talent that is unreal on the world stage. All right, moving on. Anyway, back to the game in hand, because they've lost all that momentum now, haven't they, from last week, where they picked up 3 points by losing to Montpellier 2-1 at home, even though they took the lead through Yuri Tielemans on 42 minutes in a move in which he started on the edge of his box. That's the sort of form, the sort of thing we thought he was capable of when he moved from Anderlecht.
Yeah.
Yes, Anderlecht. And he's starting to show flashes of it now. Unfortunately, it's in a team devoid of talent, probably of his level. So, not great for him. But anyway, this is just the 14th goal Monaco have scored this season in the league, and they did deserve it. They dominated the first half with around 60% possession as Montpellier came under a certain amount of pressure. Now, although they were 19th going into this game, there was clearly a buoyancy, a positivity about Monaco, at least in the opening 45.
How did you pull buoyancy out of your brain, but could only find positiveness?
It's been a strange morning.
That's weird.
It's been a strange old morning.
Unpredictable.
And they were combative as well, Pato. They won 18 aerial duels, while the visitors won only 13, which is kind of an indication of the direct brand of football being played here, but at least, people like Glick up for it. And just to reinforce that point, Montpellier also committed 20 fouls in this game. So a physical contest, one we're not used to seeing Monaco sort of partake in, but they are trying to secure points now by any means, aren't they? So it got a little bit bruising, let's say. And then second half, it's like they never beat Cayenne, Pato, in the second half, mate. It was absolutely terrible. Within 10 minutes, Montpellier scored an equaliser through Laborde, who found himself unmarked, scoring a simple header past Benaglio. And they were starting to ship goals when Jardim left, but in his first season, I remember them being very defensively sound. I think, in fact, they were the best defence in Ligue 1, and although they became a better attacking side, they remained pretty solid throughout his tenure, didn't they?
Well, they always had that
kind
central
of a new
midfield solidity, right?
Yeah.
So in the early days, it was Bakayoko and Kondogbia. Then by the end, it was kind of Fabinho and, well, God, who was it after Bakayoko?
Don't know.
I mean, Tielemans played a bit there, and Moutinho was still playing a bit there.
Also lost Mendy on the left-hand side, I guess, and his powers of recovery. But a lot left to be desired.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like if you're playing Montpellier, you should, and you can't score against them with the talent that you have at your disposal, then it does just seem like a real indictment of your quality as a manager. Because whilst this Monaco squad is not what it was last season, or even this, or certainly the season before, I still think it's more talented than 60-70% of Ligue 1 squads. Tielemans had 5 shots in this game from deep midfield. Though to be fair, they only had 2 shots on target, one from Tielemans' goal, obviously, and one from Falcao, who came on with 15 minutes left to go. They've lost 9 times in the league, which is 3 times more than they lost in the whole of last season. They were dispossessed 10 times, while Montpellier were dispossessed twice, so perhaps a bit of naivety there. I don't know, I mean, I felt a bit bad for Jemison, who obviously made an error which led to the winning goal in the 86th minute. He failed to judge the flight of this delivery from Delort, and it went through to Skuletic, who managed to get his first goal of the season. But before that, Jemison had won 6 aerial duels. He made 4 tackles, had a pass accuracy of 88%. And you just feel a little bit sorry for him, because overall, essentially the team are being put in a position where one error on the part of one player can just cost them the whole result. And that's always true to some extent. But even in the Jardim days, when they would ship a silly goal, you trusted that they had the attacking power to get back into the match.
Yeah.
And there just doesn't seem to be any structure at all anymore. Ronnie Lopez, for some reason, giving them a little bit of a silver lining in this horrible cloud. He's signed a new deal with them, extending his stay till 2022. He was linked with a return to Man City earlier in the year. Obviously, everybody is looking for a goal-scoring winger, and he had an outstanding campaign last year. So that'll be good for them if they can keep hold of him, but maybe it'll just mean that whoever buys him will pay 10 to 15 million more. They're 19th, still 19th, 3 points from safety. Though that means that they haven't been entirely cut adrift. Their next game is at fellow strugglers Amiens, so they'll be desperate to get that win and maybe finally get out of the bottom 3. But it really is looking like a genuine relegation battle is on Thierry Henry's hands.
Last but not least, then we have our star of the week, and this comes from Dr. N'Golo, and he wants to highlight Hudson Odoi's virtuoso performance in the Europa League, his first competitive start.
Well, he actually came up on the podcast last week because we were talking about how we'd save some of the relegation strugglers in the Premier League, and I mentioned him as a possibility for a Burnley, and I think Joe might have mentioned him for Fulham. Did you talk about him for Cardiff?
I touched upon Ola Aina, who's also a Chelsea player, currently on loan at Torino, but yeah.
Yeah, the 18-year-old scored and assisted on his competitive debut for Chelsea in the Europa League against PAOK. He had 5 shots in this game, which is one more than Olivier Giroud. So even when you compare him against other players playing this terrible opposition, he still had a good game. Completed 3 dribbles, which was second to Loftus-Cheek's 8. He laid on 4 chances, which was third only to Cesc and Pedro, though the fact that there are 3 players with 4 or more chances created really does show how easy
bode well
this
for
was.
PAOK.
But he's very young, he's fast, he seems 2-footed, he can score, he can create. I mean, he sounds like another talented Chelsea youngster who'll be forced to go to France in order to get minutes.
You know what? I think I'd love to see him on loan in Germany or France at current, because he very clearly has the talent. No one has really broken down the doors of that first team still since John Terry. Ruben Loftus-Cheek kind of maybe sticking around a year too long in order to do so.
Sure.
But anyway, let's stay glass half full, because he was understandably emotional after this game, scoring his first goal for the club, where he's been training at since aged 8, and some backing from his first team members. Willian, in particular, who was reportedly offered to be his agent, hilariously.
What?
I don't know if he said that in jest or if he genuinely meant it.
He's got a full-time job.
Yeah, he's. I think a lot of the Chelsea players think he's good enough to play for this first team now, and it might be wise to give him minutes in the here and now, because top clubs are circulating like vultures for this kid.
Okay.
So Barcelona and Bayern this week have been reported to be interested, and you could see him getting game time at Bayern if he's coming up against the likes of Serge Gnabry. If Robin and Ribéry leave at the end of the season for sure and Kingsley Coman remains injured, that might be a really interesting destination for him. He was denied a loan move actually to Germany. RB Leipzig, shock horror,
of course,
wanted to take him on loan. And he only has 18 months left on his contract.
Ooh.
So it puts him in a strong negotiating position, I guess. But it'll be interesting to see what his next steps are, and if Willian, his now new super agent, does help him facilitate a great move, because no doubt he's got one eye on Sancho and Nelson, and he's thinking, bullet.
And I don't know when his birthday is, but in 18 months' time, he probably still won't even be 20, in which case, that's kind of a no-brainer. Why would you not pick him up?
I've had something in my eye for the last half an hour.
Really?
So yeah, I agree. I do think.
Is it part of a cookie? The state of you.
What noise does he make?
What, it says cookie?
Yeah.
But in a Dikembe Mutombo voice.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What is that?
Dikembe Mutombo?
Yeah.
Basketball legend. I'll tell you a story off camera.
You're right, that was a great anecdote. Well worth waiting for.
Thanks.
And will be ever, confined to being off camera because wholly inappropriate. Disappeared into the ether now.
After dark.
But what else can people, actually tune into?
Well, we've obviously got a football social this week because we've got midweek games. So Wednesday night, I believe, it will be, I assume, Arsenal versus Manchester United, but I haven't checked because I'm not on it. And also make sure that you're keeping abreast of Stat Wars, the league, which is still in full effect. Your boy is top of the league, but it's actually tighter than it was after I had a draw.
No one's ever mentioned breast and Stat Wars in the same sentence either.
A draw with Doogie Critchley. Disgraceful
I needed
scenes.
that. I need to, because it keeps you in touching distance, but I also drew with Zach, which
Where
is
are you?
pretty...
Position-wise?
I think I'm on 10 points and you're on 13. Sorry.
Not sure about that.
Well,
Must have a game in hand.
maybe.
Anyway, see you next time.
Bye.